As highly sensitive people, we overly read into external cues and overly process everything. If we're not able to preserve our energy very well with excessive amount of input, it's easy for us to be negatively affected by people, especially for people who've gone through traumas. Our inner insecurities will be magnified through relationships. Through this video, I will help you gain a deeper understanding of the personality traits of highly sensitive people and the gifts and challenges that come with it manifested in relationships. And finally, I will offer you 3 priceless relationship tips. So let's get started. The first piece of advice is to develop healthy emotional boundaries. For highly sensitive people, we are already overly responsive and absorbing to social stimulus and every external cue around us. So it's very easy for us to just be like sponge, to absorb other people's feelings and emotions, both positive and negative. It was proven that highly sensitive people have more mirror neuron in our brains, which means that we mirror others' feelings and emotions exactly. So we are very empathetic to people around us. On one hand, it's such a precious ability because nowadays a lot of people are extremely self-absorbed. All they think about is themselves. They feel like they are on top of the world and others are there only to serve them. So they cannot do the job that highly sensitive people do. For example, we take care of other people. We know how to comfort a sad person. We know how to make others feel safe and be open to us and be vulnerable to us, which make them feel supported. But on the other hand, we overly take responsibility for others. We feel like, well, since we have this ability, we have this precious ability, we feel somehow obligated to make others feel better, to take care of other people. When it exceeds the healthy amount, we suffer from mental burnout. One thing we should really pay attention to when we are being highly sensitive or highly responsive to other people's needs and emotions is that there's a fundamental difference between being empathetic to other people and being codependent. Being empathetic means that when you are able to notice the subtleties in the air, you notice the slightest difference of people's facial expressions or tones, you realize, well, there's something they're going through. Maybe they seem upset, maybe they seem angry. After hearing about their experience, you feel like part of you are going through the same thing that they're going through. Part of you are experiencing the sadness that they are feeling. And you wanted to make them feel validated. You wanted to make them feel like you've seen them and understood them, and it stops there. But for codependent, other than being able to notice the subtleties in the air, to notice that something is wrong with someone, like they're upset or unhappy, you almost have this desperate driving force like inside of you to cheer them up, to make them feel better, because you are experiencing the uncomfortable anxiety and uncomfortable sensations within your body. Basically, you're doing it for yourself, because only if you please them, you cheer them up, they are happy. When they're okay, you could be okay. Only if they feel better, you could feel better about yourself. You could stop feeling and experiencing those uncomfortable sensations going on inside of you. And all the time, there's a sense of urgency that comes with it, because you're just so desperate, trying to get it out of their system to make them feel better. For example, when I was a child, growing up around my dad is extremely painful because he seems always so distant and angry and indifferent, sometimes even cruel. It just gives me this impression. So it's painful and it's anxious for me to watch my daddy being unhappy, because when he was unhappy, he would just start to yell at people and start to throw things around and throw temper tantrum to people around him. And to me, it means that I might get yelled at, I might get scapegoated, I might get abandoned by him, which is the scariest thing that could I be thinking about as a child. So I learned a lot of tactics to please my dad. I learned how to do these sweet things for him, to say the smart words, to constantly checking if he's feeling better, because only if he is feeling better, the environment is safe for me to be in, my anxiety would go away. So I learned growing up to be extremely observant of people around me. Like I could sense tension miles away. I could become extremely anxious even though nothing is actually happening, but my mind, my brain would interpret it to be something dangerous for me. as an adult, I couldn't bear to witness my boyfriend be unhappy or my boss being unhappy, because I always made it something about me. I felt like, well, I did something wrong. So it just brings me extreme amount of anxiety. I feel like I need to fix things. I need to make them feel better so that I could be safe to be around them. So my entire focus would shift to the person that I'm obsessive about, that I'm in relationship with. I would desperately do things to cheer them up, to prove that, well, I'm good. I actually did something for you. I have done this, I've done that. I'm smart for you, I'm good for you. Please don't abandon me. And basically those are the signals I send out, which is a classic codependent behavior. If this is a pattern for you as well, it means that you have gone through some traumas in your childhood that needs to be healed. This is why it's very important for us to develop healthy emotional boundaries. We need to identify what's theirs and what's ours. We really need to move back from focusing on other people into internally focused. One thing that really helped me was a theory called separation of tasks from the famous psychologist Alfred Adler, which I've discussed in detail in my video, 3 Years of Therapy, What I've Learned. I'm going to put it here. If you're interested, you can check it out. The second piece of advice is to understand that space is necessary and important for balanced relationships. For a lot of highly sensitive people, space can be a scary thing because we get to sense the tiniest nuances in relationships. A missed phone call, a seemingly distant reply, or a mindless response. They could cause us to overthink about things, trying to figure out like why they have changed, why they said something that they said, and why they did it, if it has something to do with us, if we did something wrong or we said something wrong. Even if it's something that everybody may feel once in a while, even the most secure people on the planet, but this is especially true for highly sensitive people. Quoting from Elaine Aron, the psychologist who first coined the concept of highly sensitive people, a lot of highly sensitive people tend to pursue and overly amplify the soul-shaking aspects of love experience and see it as a romantic norm. But when the honeymoon stage is over, everything goes back to normal. We may all retrieve back to our ordinary life, right? But when there's a change, highly sensitive people may find it hard to deal with. Unable to accept the nature of their relationships, we tend to make it about us. Especially for people who've gone through traumas, we get triggered of abandonment anxiety. We view space as the enemy. Space is scary to us because we assign meaning to it. We view it as rejection. We interpret it as if there's something fundamentally wrong with us as a person and something seriously flawed within us. As we make up more stories about it, we get trapped in this negative extreme of thoughts, and we tend to cling to our partner even more, which drives them away further because they could sense this anxiety within us. They wanted to reclaim their autonomy. So it becomes a classic chase and run. One thing we really need to understand is that by maintaining a healthy sense of self, by maintaining this complete personal identity, is a key to foster a healthy interdependence in relationships. We could each do our own thing. We could have our own hobbies, our own friend circles, and chase for our individual realization while still choosing to be there for another person in times of vulnerability, to explore life together, to explore novelty through the entire life course. Those two things do not conflict each other. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing choice. Only when we are firm and grounded in our personal identity with this healthy sense of self, we would know how to give out pure love. We would stop controlling and manipulating others to change. We would just allow them to be whoever they are, because deep down we know I'm complete and I'm good. I don't need another person to change for me to feel better about myself. That's why secure people, the person who have a healthy sense of self, like the complete sense of self, they wouldn't try to control or change other people, because deep down they know like they don't have to project their insecurities, unfinished dreams, fears to another person. Which also leads to my third point. The third piece of advice is to understand that the more we try to control, the more we need to let go. Attempting to control external things often reflects our inner insecurities about ourselves. We feel unsafe, we feel powerless and out of control. That's why we desperately try to cling to another person, to change the person, to change the situation, to change the relationship so that we could feel better and in control about ourselves. More often than not, in relationships, we have reached a certain degree of intimacy, so we tend to be very authentic and direct and vulnerable about what we want. So we want the other person to go along with whatever feels comfortable with us, whatever works for ourselves. 100% of the time in relationships, both parties are trying to do the same thing. We all try to change some aspects about the other person so we could be okay. A lot of times it's okay because we love that person, we wanted to change, we wanted to accommodate to them, to show them how much we care and love them, to improve our relationships, right? But maybe just try to look at it this way. A more powerful and nourishing way would be using this attempt of changing someone else to discover some hidden aspects about myself, to discover the trauma patterns, to actually reclaim responsibility of self-healing and personal growth. Instead of being strangled in a relationship where we accuse each other of not being cooperative enough, of not loving us enough to change, we take our power back by diving deep into our own insecurities. For example, if I'm a person who is extremely anxious about the future, extremely anxious that I might not be financially abundant one day in times of potential crisis, when I'm facing this fear, I might have two options. For example, I might go find a rich husband, or I really hate the aspects of my current boyfriend who is not striving, who is not like as ambitious as I want him to be, who is lazy, right? Consequently, I would want him to work harder. I want him to bring more money back so that I could feel financially secure with him. So to take a more powerful action, I might dive into the insecurities that I have with money. For example, I feel like if I don't have money, it means that I don't have value. I might feel worthless because that's what my family taught me. Because as a kid, they have taught me to praise, to look up to people who are financially abundant, who are famous, who are like successful in a social status, right? So I grew up adopting the same belief in order to survive in this household, in order to not be condemned and abandoned by them. So I have to believe that my entire value is and should be based on the money, should be based on how financially wealthy I am. After understanding this, I might take a different action. I might get a new job where I feel fulfilled and valued. And I'm gonna work on the root cause of my trauma, which is self-value issues. And one day, it actually might lead to both personal realization and financial abundance by myself. Instead of projecting my insecurities to my partners to want them to change, I could allow him to be whoever he wants to be because I'm perfectly good and confident and secure myself. Alright my friends, that's the end of this video. I hope you like it. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.